Hello Year 10s, I hope you're going well. This is just a short video for you guys to help you construct your short response assessments that are due this coming Monday, as we don't have a lesson on Friday. So we'll quickly go through what is expected of you, as well as some notes on fluency and quoting. So for this lesson, there's actually been a page distributed to your OneNote, found under Unit 1, World War II in your notebooks, called Deconstructed Response Example, where you can find all these resources and everything that I'm using today. Okay. I'd also ask you to consider, while we will go through and do some, refreshing of quotes and how to put them in your sources, have a look at the PDF beneath it and do some of the activities on that PDF, just to refresh the way you do quotes. Okay, that was something that we definitely needed to improve as a class, generally speaking. I'll give you a moment just to go there now. Okay, so on that page you'll find an example there for you, an example response. Now this is what we call a 5-marker, or basically your very stereotypical short response. Now, in the case of this current assessment, your short responses are going to have to be a little bit longer. Okay, they're not going to be quite as compact as this one, but it is nonetheless pretty much exactly the same in regards to structure and features. Now, what you have in front of you on that page is you'll have this response to the sample prompt up there, but I've highlighted various sections in different colors. What I want you to do now is to take a moment and to identify what those sections are, or what's happening in those sections. You do not need to know the technical language, but if at the very least you can identify what's going on in your own words, that's good enough. So take a minute now and identify each of those sections. Pause this video while you do that. Okay, coming back. Firstly, let's check our answers now. Firstly, the purple color is what we call a contention. The contention is clear and copies or mimics the language, even if it's synonyms, of the prompt. Now that shows that someone has deconstructed the prompt well. They know exactly what they're answering. So make sure that your contentions are nuanced, they consider all of the factors, and they directly answer the prompt. Some of you may have been told not to use quotes in your contentions or your conclusions. You can do that in history, that's fine, just as long as they're small quotes and not long ones, because you want to keep your contention focused on simply answering the prompt in a general sense. Secondly, the green highlight, we have evidence, in this case, 2 quotes, but it's not evidence from your own knowledge, we'll get to that later, it's evidence from the quotes. So your response should also have evidence in the form of quotes from the sources. You'll notice that these quotes are not massive chunks. They're shorter, smaller examples, weaved into the points that are being made by the person who authored this piece. What that demonstrates is that they understand what the source says, but they can also draw they understand what the source says in their own, enough to, I guess, communicate the ideas in their own language, but they can draw on specific points of the text as quotes to prove that they have actually analyzed it. That's very well done. Moving on down, we have the yellow highlights. Now this is evidence from their own knowledge, except for the, maybe including the protection part. You will be expected to use some of your own knowledge in these short response examples and in other short response questions and source analysis questions later on. Okay, you will need to do so to answer these prompts. However, you will want to prioritize analyzing the sources and using quotes and paraphrases from there. Next on down, we have the blue highlight. Now this might be a little bit tricky for you, but what we have here is connective language or text connectives. This resulted in cause and effect. Now the reason this sort of language is important is that what it clearly demonstrates is this person has organized points that flow from one to another. They can see cause and effect in history, and they're explaining it in their response. So you'll want to have points that flow from one another. Okay, and you'll want to use text connective language in your responses, as well as obviously analytical language as well that you've been taught in English. Finally, in the red, we have a concluding statement. It is a summative statement that again answers the prompt more specifically than I guess your contention would. You'll note they have quoted a source, but again, it's only a short quote. So, what we need to consider when we're constructing our prompts is a clear contention and a concluding statement. If you're struggling for what you might write with your concluding statement, you might start with the sentence starter, to conclude. Then summarize your points and your overall argument. Okay? You'll need evidence, both in the form of your own knowledge and from the sources. In the case of this response, I suggest you prioritize the sources, drawing quotes and paraphrases from such. Don't forget to include a bibliography in your response. You'll need connective words or text connectives. Flow between your points. Okay? Identify or demonstrate that you understand cause and effect. Okay? You understand the interconnectedness between various concepts. And then finally, and this is a big one, stick to your argument. Avoid retelling history. In any assessment such as this, you'll come to understand that there is an assumed knowledge. Assume that I know all the events in history. You're not trying to tell me what happened. You're trying to get me to agree with your opinion or your conclusion in regards to the question on perhaps why it happened. Or do you agree to a statement about the thing that happened? But don't simply list off events. Rather, use perspective on events or the events themselves to prove the point you are making. Moving on. Embedding quotes. Just a quick refresher here, nothing much, but I do suggest you go and do the activity on that page. You can do signal phrases. Okay, so we're looking at style here, the different ways that you can embed quotes. So, as Jane Smith explains, and then we have a quote. Okay. Now remember, you'll want to use specific vocabulary. Do not just simply say says. So don't just go as Jane Smith says. Okay. Rather, explains, states, argues, commands, infers, so on and so forth. A specific advanced vocabulary you want to use. Think about how your source is saying it and use the right word. Now, as you can see here with signal phrases, they can of course come before or after the quote, but do not just simply put a quote in there and leave it by itself. Don't leave a dangling quote. Rather, introduce it with a signal phrase or finish it with a signal phrase. The next way that we want to primarily focus on quoting for this assessment is embedding or weaving in. Now, some could say that this is a more mature or nuanced way of quoting. That's not necessarily the case. Mixing things up is always good, but this is primarily what you will see in a lot of analytical writing. So below we have two examples. Scrooge is depicted as a person who is, and here is our quote, solitary as an oyster, illustrating that he is isolated in his own sphere. The next one is, King Lear warned, nothing will come of nothing. Extolling Cordelia to speak again. What we see here is a demonstration of a person who's able to draw on different parts of different sources or different parts of the same source when making their point. They've clearly analysed the text very well and in full, and they can write nuanced, mature and advanced sentences, drawing on quotes in different parts or weaving them through their points to prove the point they are making. The key to this is knowing your source very, very well, and also knowing the point that you want to make ahead of time. It will take some work and you'll need some practice, but nonetheless, you should be able to pull it off in a very quick time. You'll notice the quotes are not large chunks, but just short phrases. They can even be, in some cases, single words. So avoid embedding or trying to weave in full sentences or massive paragraphs. It simply won't work. To conclude, submitting your assessment. You can email me for feedback over the weekend, but I might not respond. I will be spending a long time marking, but I also have family obligations. Okay? Now it is due Monday, the 23rd of the 5th. We have had some time in class to prepare, okay? And as with all of my assessments, it's due at 11:59 p.m. to replicate the experience you'll have at university. Now finally, I'd like to just put in there a nice little saying that I think is really good that Mr. Horman says quite often, go with God. And that is the truth, go with God. Trust the Lord, He's with you, He can calm you and give you understanding. That's enough from me. If you have any questions about this assessment or about anything in history, please get in contact with me ASAP. God bless.